You know, when you picture the New York skyline, what comes to mind? Steel, right? Glass, just pure ambition soaring into the sky. But what if I told you the most powerful force shaping that view isn't a construction crane at all? It's actually a rule book. Yeah, a rule book. We're going to dive into what I like to call the invisible architecture, this hidden system of rules that literally built the world's most famous skyline.
Okay, so to get why these rules even exist, you have to picture the absolute chaos that came before them. I mean, listen to this. This is how one guy, a New Yorker, back in 1903, described his daily commute. He called it the mad effort of human hogs and hellions. Seriously, he was talking about just trying to get to work. It was a city that was, literally bursting at the seams. Just a total free-for-all, a city with no plan.
Right, so let's set the scene. It's the early 1900s, and this new technology, steel frame construction, just completely changes the game. Suddenly you could build higher than anyone ever dreamed. It kicked off this wild, unregulated race to the sky. But here's the thing, while everyone was looking up, a total nightmare was unfolding down on the streets.
And these weren't just small problems, they were huge. I mean, imagine this. These brand new skyscrapers, they were so tall and so close together that they were literally blocking out the sun, turning streets into these dark, stuffy canyons. That whole bridge crush thing, that was just the tip of the iceberg. And then you had this drama unfolding on Fifth Avenue of all places. High-end retailers were absolutely horrified when garment factories started moving in because suddenly the streets were flooded with factory workers at lunchtime. It was a full-on culture clash right there on the sidewalk.
So the very things that were supposed to be signs of progress, all that steel, all that amazing engineering, were actually creating a massive crisis. The city quickly realized, whoa, we can't just build our way out of this mess. They needed something totally different. They needed a blueprint.
And in 1916, that blueprint finally arrived. It was called the Building Zone Resolution. And get this, it was the first comprehensive zoning law, not just in New York, but in the entire United States. I mean, this was a totally revolutionary idea, this grand attempt to finally bring some order to all that chaos.
So what even is zoning, right? The simplest way to think about it is like an official rule book for the whole city. It's like taking a giant map and drawing lines on it, dividing it up into different districts. This part's for living, that part's for business, this other part's for factories. And for each of those zones, there's a specific set of rules about what you can build, how you can use it, and crucially, how big it can be.
This 1916 law really stood on three main pillars. Pillar number one, separate where people live from where they work. Pretty simple, right? No more factories right next to your apartment building. Pillar two, require some open space on lots, just to let the city breathe a little. But it was that third pillar that was the real game changer. It limited a building's height based on how wide the street was in front of it. And that one rule, it would change the face of New York forever.
What this did was create a really simple trade-off. You want to build taller? Okay, fine. But you have to step your building back from the street as you go up. This requirement became known as the setback. And the whole point was to let sunlight and air actually reach the poor folks down on the sidewalk. And this simple rule, it accidentally created one of the most iconic architectural styles in history.
And you can see exactly how this worked on a real-world project. Check this out. This is the 1929 plot plan for the Empire State Building. It basically shows the architects trying to solve this incredibly complex puzzle, juggling different rules for different parts of the very same lot. This wasn't, an artistic choice. It was the law. And the result is that famous wedding cake style. It's architecture that was born directly from a rulebook.
Okay, but of course, time marches on. Let's fast forward to after World War II. New York is now the undisputed capital of the world. Economically, culturally, you name it. The city is just buzzing with this incredible new energy. And that old 1916 rulebook, well, it started to feel less like a blueprint and more like a straitjacket.
I mean, the 1950s were just an explosion of creativity. You've got the first credit card being invented, the first color TV broadcast, you've got action painting shaking up the art world. The city was defining what it meant to be modern. Everything felt new and exciting, except for the architecture.
Suddenly, that old 1916 code was the problem. It was so out of whack, it technically allowed for enough development to house 55 million people. Can you imagine? It was leading to crazy overbuilding in some spots and just total blight and vacancy in others. Plus, that whole setback formula, a new generation of modern architects thought it was completely old-fashioned. They wanted to build sleek glass and steel towers. The city, once again, needed a new plan.
And that new plan came in 1961. It was the 1961 zoning resolution. And this wasn't just a minor update, it was another total revolution. A complete rethinking of not just the rules, but the entire philosophy of what a modern city should be.
So here's the fundamental change, the big idea. The old 1916 code was all about a building's shape, but the new 1961 code, it was all about a building's bulk, its total size. It did this using a new concept called floor area ratio, or FAR for short. So instead of telling architects what a building had to look like, the new rules just told them how much building they were allowed to have, total. It was a huge shift in thinking.
And FAR is actually pretty simple. It's just a multiplier. Let's say your plot of land is 10,000 square feet, and the FAR for that area is 10. That means you get to build 100,000 square feet of total floor space. But how you shape that 100,000 square feet, that's up to you. You could build a short, squat building that covers the whole lot. Or you could build a tall, skinny tower and use the leftover space at the bottom for a public plaza. And that model, the tower in the park, would totally define corporate architecture for decades.
And these ideas, they're not just abstract theories. They become the law of the land inside documents like these, the official zoning handbooks. You can think of them as the blueprints for the blueprint. They're the guides that every single developer, architect, and builder in New York City has had to live by for more than half a century.
Which, of course, brings us to today. Because this code isn't some dusty old historical document. No way. It's a living thing. It's constantly being updated, argued over, and changed. And it continues to shape every single new building that goes up in the city.
So after all this, what's the real takeaway here? What does all this invisible architecture actually mean for the city you walk through today?
Well, what it really created is a kind of two-lane highway for development. If a builder follows all the rules in the book, to the letter, their project is called as of right. They can pretty much just build it, no questions asked. But if they want an exception, if they want to go a little taller, a little bigger, then they have to switch lanes and go through this long, complicated, and often very public review process. It's this constant balancing act between having predictable rules and giving the public a say.
And really, in the end, that's what this is all about. You look at the skyline, and sure, it's this incredible testament to what we can build. But the zoning code, that invisible architecture, that tells you who we want to be. It's this messy, complicated, century-long conversation the city is having with itself about what it values, what really matters, and what kind of city it wants to become.